people who went to school with celebrities before they were famous. What were they like?
Brad Pitt went to my high school when my mom was there. She said he was really nice and kind of a nerd, hung out with the other theater kids mostly.
Went to junior high and high school with Taylor Lautner. Played football together my freshman year. Dude was really nice, and a bit awkward. This was before the whole Twilight thing, and he was most famous for Shark Boy and Lava Girl. He seemed pretty much what you expect a theater kid to be like. But really nice dude overall, pretty quiet, played Pokemon Leaf Green together a few times.
My mom was close friends with Winona Ryder in high school. She dressed in all black a lot and was made fun of by other kids, but my mom, her and a couple others were a pretty tight group. She said Winona used to eat salad for lunch a lot to diet, and she'd put a ton of dressing on it to the point that it wasn't even healthy anymore, haha. After her movie Heathers she made them go and watch it together. She said she was really sweet, and Winona highlighted her picture in my mom's yearbook, which was pretty cool to see.
Is a terrorist famous? I went to school with Richard Reed, the shoe bomber. My mom used to feel sorry for his mom because his dad was a complete bastard when he wasn't in prison. Can't ever defend what he tried to do, but that kid never stood a chance.
Was a freshman when Chris Pratt was a senior. We didn't interact much, but he was in a lot of the assemblies and I did tech theater for a play he was in. He was a goofball. Lots of charisma, laid back, class clown. About what you'd expect seeing him now.
Was friends with Natalie Portman in first grade. Had a fake fur coat. Her mom would pack her lunch in lots of little containers with instructions on how to assemble them. That's all I remember.
Went to primary school with Hugh Jackman, total class act and always had the makings of someone who would be successful. Went to school with Khalid. He was one of those kids that always pretended to be stoned but never smoked. He acted very flamboyant and used that to always be around girls, never made a move on them though. Strange fellow.
Tommy Hilfiger, who was basically regarded as a trashy a-hole. He had approximately 100 siblings and I think they were all kind of that way.
Went to high school with Mac Miller. Dude was fucking dedicated. He was selling CDs in school and always had posters up and stuff. We weren't really in the same social circles but we had some classes together. He was a goof and a generally good guy. R.I.P. I went to high school with the black kid in the wheelchair from Malcolm in the Middle. He was a dick to everyone but always had a large group of people following him because he was famous.
Went to school with Eminem's daughter in high school. She was a cool girl and always gotten a lot of attention because of her dad. Lol. Family friend still holds a grudge against Anne Hathaway for stealing her boyfriend in high school.
My cousin went to high school with John Krasinski. He even came to her wedding reception 8 years ago.
My husband knew Pete Wentz from Fall Out Boy. Back in the day they had some mutual friends. Said Wentz was a nice guy, quiet. Puked in my husband's car once after a rave, lol.
Went to high school with Aaron Judge of the Yankees. Was a specimen of an athlete at a very young age. I was older than him, but it was a small school so basically everyone knew everyone. Ran into him at a mutual friend's party the first year he was called up to the majors and the guy graciously accepted a congratulations, then began to ask about me and my life as the local bartender in our small-ass town. Remembered my name and everything. Guy is extremely humble and an overall class act.
I went to school with Terry Crews for a couple years. Nice kid and a great artist. He and one other kid used to have drawing competitions before class started. Somebody would yell out a comic book character and he and the other kid, also a great artist, would both draw. I can't remember who was better because it was a lifetime ago. He punched me in the chest once at an assembly and totally winded me. I was being a dick, so I had it coming. Went to high school with Shawn Mendes. Nice kid, we all used to make fun of him a bit but I guess the joke's on us now. I see him around at parties once in a while, still a nice guy.
My best friend's mom went to college with Wes Anderson and yes, he was a total hipster, but he's this super humble dude. They run into Ecother in Dallas every once in a while and he says hi and buys her coffee as if he's not this huge director. Same for Owen Wilson.
I was a year behind Zach Galifianakis in elementary and high school. He seems like pretty much the exact same guy he was years ago, down to earth. Super funny and a little goofy. He was also a Boy Scout.
Went to college with Logan Paul. We have those huge street parties every spring. Remember a whole block of college party kids chanting "Fuck Logan Paul"? These were the Vine days when he was just starting out.
Can't believe no one has mentioned Drake yet. He went to my high school, though in different grades, so I didn't know him. He was already famous from Degrassi High, and he was hilariously pompous. This school had quite a few rich families, and the rich kids loved him, of course. I mean, he was a very rich kid named Aubrey, living in a rich white, Jewish area. His started from the bottom stuff in songs and street accent is hilariously fake.
Kelly Clarkson's family and a section of mine were really close before she got famous. I was originally introduced to her as another of my cousins. I have, and know, over 70 first and second cousins. My family reunions are massive. She was pretty cool when we were kids. She's a couple years older than me but was always really nice, down to earth, and big on church group stuff. My family has old videos of me and her singing together and of her singing for my aunt and uncle's wedding, all from before American Idol. No, I couldn't sing worth crap then or now, but her love of music was contagious.
My mom went to school with the current president of Serbia. She said he was quite nerdy and socially awkward, but I guess that's changed now.
My aunt and uncle lived next door to Patrick Stewart. He had a terrible childhood. His dad was traumatized during the war like so many were. He changed so much it became untenable, and his mom used to send him to relatives to keep him safe. Very sad. He is a lovely man and he keeps in touch with friends he made many years ago.
My friend's mom went to school with Tony Hawk. She said he was pretty chill.
Went to school with the daughter of the president of the country. Technically it wasn't her who's famous, outside of a few TV appearances during ceremonies and the inauguration, but it was funny, after her dad was elected, how we'd go for a lunch or something and she'd be stealthily pointing at inconspicuously looking men in plain clothes a few tables away who were the bodyguards, Secret Service. Then those guys would be trailing us 20 to 30 meters, hiding in the crowd so as not to be obvious, etc. Weird experience overall. She was pretty down to earth. Her behavior didn't change at all, except leaving the school through the back door as the media, roughly a week after the election, were essentially camping in front of the main entrance trying to get an interview.
In college my mom dated Weird Al's best friend. She said he was super shy and reserved most of the time, but as soon as he entered the booth it was like a switch was flipped and he exploded with excitement and energy.
Demi Lovato. And let's just say she doesn't tell the whole story when she's talking about being bullied. _edit_:, just going to move the commented elaboration up to the main post for the convenience of readers. She was a bully who got bullied. It's the classic chicken and egg scenario. She was bullied because she was terrible. But the bullying made her worse. So it's very he said she said about who started it. She was also just a piece of work in general. Her mother got up on the lunch tables at one point and yelled that we would all regret the way we treated her daughter. She thought she was a gift from God and wanted to be treated as such. Very about being recognized for her supreme vocal talent and such.
My parents went to Catholic high school with Chris Farley. Guess he acted the exact way off camera and got suspended once for showing his pecker to a nun.
I went to high school with Shawn Mendes. Didn't know him personally, as I was in 12th grade while he was a 9th grader. Despite that age gap, I knew who he was. Girls in my grade were already gushing about how cute and talented he was. I'm friends with a handful of people who are very close to him, and I'm happy to say that he seems like a really kind-hearted person. He never portrayed an ounce of arrogance. He was always respectful to those around him. I came back for a grade 13 and he was back for grade 10, ended up being his last year in regular HS. His fame started to pick up real momentum, but he remained the same grounded individual. It's been a treat to watch his career flourish and I will always be a fan. Plus, It's cool watching friends from high school casually traveling the world with him. Those guys got it good. Edit, I feel like I missed an important part. I remember him getting the gears from a lot of males in my grade and I don't think he ever got too worried about it. Kid was cool and level-headed and he's done wonders for himself.
I went to school 5th-12th grade with the son of Suzanne Collins, author of The Hunger Games. She came into my 5th grade class and we all got signed copies of her other book Gregor the Overlander. Didn't take off like THG did, that's for sure. Her son was super quiet and nerdy, nice kid but just didn't talk. I remember his girlfriend was also a writer and a lot of us were convinced that she was only dating him to get close to his mom.
Post Malone and I graduated from high school together. I even have a picture from when our art class recreated the Last Supper with McDonald's for someone's art project. He posed as Jesus and I was basically Judas. We weren't friends, but he was always friendly when we did speak. He had a very chill demeanor and always cracked jokes in our history class. I liked the dude.
Jensen Ackles was a well-liked theater kid. Berkner High School FTW. I went to high school with James Gandolfini. Super nice and fun guy. R.I.P.
Went to Long Beach Polytechnic High School with Snoop Dogg. But I got kicked out for smoking pot at school.
Elementary school with Nick Jonas. There would always be like at least 10 girls at recess who would follow him around to hear him sing. Really sweet kid, kind of quiet and kept to himself if I remember correctly.
Knew a guy that was high school classmates with Mike Myers. All that Wayne's World stuff was them in grade 11.
Went to school with former MLB player and current Twins manager Rocco Baldelli. He would play softball with us after school sometimes on Fridays. Wasn't a jerk. Was a very down-to-earth guy. Good student. Saw him some years later at a local event and got his autograph. Was still a cool dude. Sucks his career wasn't as good as it could have been due to his mitochondrial disorder, but glad to see he's making up for it by having success in Minnesota. Edit, SP.
My mom tried repeatedly flirting with Jeffrey Dahmer just for him to grunt and walk away from her. Then her gay friend said hello to him and he actually responded.
My mom and uncle went to high school with Green Day. Apparently their first show was the high school talent show of their little country town. They were way more punk at the beginning and were booed off stage apparently.
Not me. But my mother always talks about how she went to school with Marilyn Manson. I guess his sense of style has always been the same and he really disliked other students for some reason. I guess he didn't do well with authority either, but was extremely respectful to his own family. Big Mama's boy.
Actually went to school with Cameron Boyce. He was really nice and we talked a few times. More acquaintances than friends but I still knew him. R.I.P. Body.
I was in the same class as Bo Burnham, but I never met him except once when he dropped his stuff in the hallway and I picked it up for him, and I kick myself every day and think about what a missed opportunity it was.
Went to the same high school as The Weeknd. He graduated a year before I got there but I remember meeting him as 12-year-old at a local pizza place, shout out Enrica's. He was piss drunk and mad he got kicked out of the school's Friday Night Lights football game. Fuck you Miss Birch. It was one of the first times in my life an older person was cool to me for no reason, introduced himself, hey man I'm Mabel. We talked a little, he knew my next door neighbor who was his age. Life's weird man.
I know I'm getting old when I read this thread and can only think who the fuck is that? Over half the responses.
Kelly Clarkson once forgot to wear shoes to school and was sent home. To be fair, country girls often drive without shoes.
Amanda Bynes was pretty cool in elementary school. We had a Marvin the Martian thing, obligatory not me, but my mom went to high school with Dave Grohl, knew him pretty casually. Said he was a total stoner, VP of the class, and would play music over the loudspeakers on occasion and was really good. Super nice, super laid-back guy, really humble about how talented he is.
I went to the same high school as Lee Pace and was in a drama club with him my freshman year. I remember him being really funny and very talented. He was the one often held up as an example. He was also really nice. Once, I had a really terrible dramatic monologue at a competition, and afterwards he sat with me and went over all the notes he took and gave me advice on how to fix everything in a very supportive and constructive way. He didn't have to take the time to do that.
Went to school with Justin Bieber. My only memories of him were him trying to act tough and pick fights with kids 4 grades higher than him and making fun of disabled people on the city bus and getting kicked off the bus more than once.
MGK cheated off me in sophomore biology.
Joel Rifkin went to the school I worked at. He became a serial killer. He was quiet. My daughter went to school with Amy Fisher, the Long Island Lolita. She famously shot the wife of her boyfriend, who was Joey Buttafuoco. She was one of the only kids who had a pager back in the day.
Not school, but I worked at the Michigan Ren Fest with Keegan-Michael Key when I was 17 and he was 19. He was fucking hilarious, sweet, supportive, and just generally a great dude. It was really cool to watch him get all his breaks, and finally the sketch show, which changed everything. We're still FB friends, but now I share that honor with about 5 million other people.
Didn't go to school with him, but had a ton of mutual friends and a casual, passing friendship with Gerard Way. He lived the next town over from me. Really nice guy, was glad to see him make it big.
Went to school with Taye Diggs. He was as handsome and charming as he seems. Gregarious, friendly, always with a smile on his face, and always upbeat and positive. He had a natural charisma to him. Easygoing and genuine.
My brother went to high school with Taylor Swift. She was actually super mean to people and got booed off the stage at her junior year talent show.
Timothy McVeigh grew up across the street from me. He was my older brother's age. My brother has the good stories, stole dynamite from the rock quarry down the road and tried to ignite it, that show he was a little off. Overall a really nice guy. My brother is convinced that he met the wrong people when he went into the military.
I went to school with a former Miss America. Conceited garbage.
My mom went to high school with the main cast of Trailer Park Boys and they were pretty wild in real life too.
Ben, and Casey Affleck. Both conceited. One day Ben overheard me telling my friend to meet me at the park. He became visibly annoyed and yelled, "It's not Pocket Park. Get it right, people." Clearly he just came from a dialect lesson or something. He must have been around 12 at the time.
I went to high school and was friends with Alan Tudyk. He was a really nice guy. Easy to get along with. And extremely funny.
Went to high school with Justin Long. He was a normal, quirky theater kid. Decent dude.
My dad was John Legend's high school teacher in Ohio. Said he would play for other students and they would all gather around.
A girl from my high school class had sort of a one-hit wonder thing going. Her first single was a big hit, the next one's not so much. I found out that she'd removed me from her Facebook friends, and who knows, others perhaps. After her single came out. Went to say congrats to her, found out we weren't friends anymore. She then went on to defend her other singles, album doing poorly on people being haters. Macron ___/Macron, growing up in the Toronto suburbs, myself and friends, family knew plenty of people from bands as well as future NHLers. An ex-girlfriend went to school with former WWE performer Santino. Nice guy all around when I met him a couple times back in the day, glad he did well for himself. Went to grade school with Jason Spezza myself, bit of an arrogant prick if you ask me, but you kind of have to be to make it as an athlete. We all went after his knees in gym class. Smile. When I was in bands we actually gave Death from Above 1979, or whatever they're called now, a spot on the bill of one of our local shows we put on, well before they got more famous of course. Also knew Will Scarlett, Cancer Bats, Alexis on Fire, Billy Talent, The End from the local mid-2000s music scene. All super nice guys.
I lived a few doors down from some NHL players in college, Ryan McDonough and Kyle Turris. Didn't know either too well, but Ryan McDonough would come to my dorm to play NHL on Xbox once in a while. I ate lunch at the same table as Kyle Turris. That's about all the interaction we had. Lol. tourist did sign a jersey for me and always seemed super nice. Some guys on the dorm floor that were friends with him got invited to his massive house in Phoenix a lot. I met McDonagh at a signing a few years later, and though he didn't remember me, we chatted a bit about college and he was super nice as well.
One of my best stoner buds in high school was David Lee Roth, John Muir, Pasadena 7072. He acted exactly as you'd imagine, pimped out like Mick Jagger. He'd hold court on the girls' field as we smoked fatties, telling us how he was going to be a big rock star. We'd reply, "Sure thing, Dave, now pass the damn joint." Dave had massive game even back then. We were rich white kids bust into the intercity, and he was hooking up with young ladies off all colors. Dave and I were part of a progressive drama scene at Muir that cultivated not only a rock star, but an operatic diva and an Oscar-winning screenwriter. Though we're no longer friends 50 years later, he always makes me smile when I see his enthusiastic mug on TV and social media.
Went to HS with LaDainian Tomlinson. I was a sophomore, he was a senior. Pretty humble dude and got along with a lot of people. Just overall nice and didn't brag much.
My dad went to school with Pam Anderson. Apparently her sister was much hotter back then and everyone wanted to date her instead of Pam. My dad even asked Pam out to eventually get to her sister. He was shut down.
Went to college with Janina Gavankar from True Blood and the L Word. She also portrays the main character in the Star Wars Battlefront 2 video game. She was nice, but not really into school. She was a fine student, but she was super focused on her career, so she was always touring or doing a gig somewhere. Some of our instructors didn't care for her because she was too good for school, but it worked out for her in the end. She hung out with Meghan Markle, who was at a nearby college, and they became really good friends. Went to the royal wedding. She chose her circle well. I also went to high school with Gina Rodriguez from Jane the Virgin and Annihilation. We were in a play together. She was super sweet and everyone liked her. She started showing up in commercials pretty much as soon as she graduated, so she didn't waste any time. Ninja was as much a tool then as he is now. Nothing really changed. Really fake, tended to bully people.
My grandmother attended at Austin when Janis Joplin attended. According to her, she was voted ugliest man on campus.
I went to high school with Margot Robbie. We were pretty good friends, but I haven't spoken to her in years. She was absolutely lovely. No one had a bad word to say about her, and she is very intelligent. I went to school with Theo James. He was quite stuck up, and it's hilarious now seeing him on Hugo Boss billboards in central London and various film front covers when I turn Netflix on. He was in my French class for about 4 years, but yeah. Bit of a posh sod as far as I recall.
Went to school with Tyson Ritter from All American Rejects. We were in the same grade and rode the same school bus route. He was in orchestra for a few years, too. He was always the class clown and getting in trouble for his antics, but he was a good kid. I went to several pre-R shows. Drowning Fish was his early HS band, and he clearly had a great stage presence. I was so happy to see him succeed, and for so long. My mom is a teacher and her kids would always ask to see my yearbooks, lol.
My mom went to the same high school, New York School of Arts or something, as Vincent D'Onofrio, though they weren't in the same class. She said they didn't really talk at all and he seemed like kind of a weird guy. Demi Moore was also in her high school class, and she held her hair back while she was sick at a party once. Demi was much more popular than my mom and never really talked to her either.
Not me, but a guy my dad worked with went to school with Dwayne Johnson. My dad said that the guy said he was a great guy.
My mom went to high school with Chris Christie. Said he was basically your typical popular baseball jock, though he was very well liked by mostly everyone. He was their senior class president and a lot of people had him pegged for a career in politics. She didn't interact with him a lot, but attended a few parties where he was present and said he could be kind of a creep when he was drunk. He signed her senior year yearbook. I went to school with another lad whose mother was a victim of notorious serial killer Peter Sutcliffe in the 70s. In later life he would turn his life around and become a motivational speaker. I only have nice things to say about him. We were schoolmates from the ages of 5 to 7, played marbles together, thoroughly nice kid that didn't deserve the hand he was dealt early in life. And I'm friends with him on Facebook. He's a family man now and really well grounded.
My grandma went to high school with Jimmy Hoffa's daughter, if that counts.
Do professional athletes count? I went to elementary school with number 16 wide receiver for the Seattle Seahawks, Tyler Lockett. I actually went to his birthday party a couple times while attending school with him. We weren't best friends, but we talked daily and often enough to get invited to outside of school events, but then again we were both very young. From what I remember, he and his family were very caring and genuinely nice, considerate people. They had a very comfortable and family-oriented vibe to them. It seemed like a great environment to grow up in. To my understanding, he kept up with his optimistic personality throughout the rest of his school years and remains humble in his profession, which is always a nice change.
I went to the same high school as Travis Barker several years apart, but his biology teacher always mentioned how his pencil tapping, drumming always drove her insane.
I hung out with Billy Gibbons, ZZ Top, back in the day. Cool guy, talented, ton of fun. I'm super old, so you may not know that band, but you probably know the music. La Grange is my all-time fave.
My friend's dad beat up Vanilla Ice in high school.
I went to school with Kombucha Girl. She's honestly dope AF.
I didn't go to school with him, but my sixth form was in the same area where Sam Smith grew up, and I know a lot of people whose music teacher was also his teacher or other similar sort of connection. Some even know him through said avenues. Apparently he always knew he could sing and would make it big, and so would not care at all about any other subjects apart from music. As in, he was a massive dick and was arrogant and cocky and all that kind of stuff.
Went to school with quite a few athletes who have gone pro. They were all pretty nice. 2 examples being Andres Pete and Marvin Bagley. 3.
I was a boarding supervisor when Dave Taylor was in high school. He was an absolute tool as a teenager, and the school covered up a lot of his bullshit in order to keep cashing those NRL checks.
I went to school with John Stamos, very cool guy.
Going to college, I never really thought about the fact that some of the dudes in my classes who were on the football team could possibly make it to the NFL. Maybe not the most famous guy, but always remember Billy Turner, current GB Packer Al, being a cool dude. Worked the ping pong and billiards tournament with him. He was doing it for a class and I worked in the building. Super cool chill dude, and big as a mountain. A little more famous, because quarterback, had a few interactions with Carson Wentz, too, another really cool, humble dude. At the time I was a student, he was just the backup, so it was pretty cool to watch his rise after the fact.
Went to high school and ran track with Mohamed Sanu, wide receiver for the Bengals, Falcons, now Patriots. Was a nice guy, but some people didn't like him in high school. But ever since he entered the NFL, he has been nothing but a class act and role model to kids. Goes back to our high school every off-season and holds a mini-comp for the football team. He is always giving back to the community where we came from and being genuine about it.
My dad went to university and is pretty good friends with the current president of Germany. My parents visited him and his wife last summer at the Bellevue Palace in Berlin.
My father went to school with Ivan Milat, Australia's worst serial killer. He said the entire Milat family were well known as scary people that you were best to keep the hell away from.
My mom was in the same high school as Gerard Butler. I believe there is 3 years between them, but they also lived on the same street briefly. They both attended the University of Glasgow too, although my mom moved to London with my auntie to another university where my mom got a degree in law. I don't know why they moved, especially as the University of Glasgow is a law school, I believe. She always has said he was lovely, cared for a lot of people and was just nice all the time. She's always went to the cinema in the opening week to see his films. That being said, she was pretty much devastated when Butler's house was destroyed in the fires in California a couple of years back.
My mom went to school with Marilyn Manson. Apparently, in middle school, he went around with a lunchbox of doll heads and his dad affectionately referred to him as Lucifer and the Antichrist.
Played hockey with Bieber. He was a douche. It was house league hockey and he wouldn't pass the puck or get off the ice for shift changes because he thought he was all that and a bag of potatoes. Around Christmas, he told the coaches he was leaving for Los Angeles to make an album, thus wouldn't be playing anymore. We were all stoked. Fast forward 6 months and Baby was all over the radio. Most people around my age were like, fuck, why that kid? And then there were the few who pretended he was their best friend to try to ride that gravy train.
Went to high school with Chris Mintz-Plasse, the guy that plays McCloven. He was pretty quiet overall and was in the drama club. One of my friends originally heard about the audition, so he tagged along and eventually got the part.
Swam with a girl who eventually went to the Olympics. Gold medalist, world record holder, made a big name for herself plus is now a professional athlete. Very humble. I haven't spoken to her in a while and didn't know her real well, but she was just cool. Didn't expect exceptions to be made for her, didn't look down on people, none of that.
Nicole Maines, Supergirl, is an absolute joy to hang out with and I'm extremely happy to still call her one of my best friends.
I didn't go to school with one but my sister did, Justin Bieber, and he lied about being 16 when she was 14 just to date her.
Went to high school with Clay Aiken, bratty and refused to be in the school play because he didn't get the lead part.
Went to high school with Travis Scott. Was a year older than him, played football together and partied together on many occasions. Dude was always cracking jokes and acting silly, but would have never thought he was going to be a superstar. Even after getting signed he still hung around with the same crew for a bit. Haven't seen him in a while. But last time I did we sat down and smoked a blunt and talked about his success. Jax is a very cool dude.
I grew up with the kid from Bad Grandpa, the one with Johnny Knoxville. His name's Jackson and he was always really cool. He was pretty hilarious at times. He's not exactly that famous, but Bad Grandpa was a really big movie when it first came out.
I went to high school with Josh Chase of NSYNC. He was pretty much a typical guy. Nice, respectful and generally well-liked.
My mom knows one of Madonna's siblings. Madonna is estranged from a lot of her family members and according to the sibling, she isn't a nice person.
My wife's cousin is Topher Grace. He's a nice guy and you forget he's famous when you talk to him. I did not know him pre-fame, but I know my wife is weird about calling him Topher as his name is Christopher.
My friend Holly Cooper and I once babysat her little brother Bradley. Yes, his eyes have always been big, blue, and beautiful. But he used to mess up our dolls we'd set up in Holly's room. Uncool.
Husband went to school with Ann Coulter. She was a nasty piece of shit then too.
My coworker went to high school with Bruno Mars. Said he was a really nice and charismatic dude.
I went to high school with Nancy Cartwright, Bart Simpson. We hung out as we were both in the marching band. She was nice and had an outlandish personality way back then, late 70s, but wasn't snobby or anything like that.
Lady Gaga was in all our theater shows. We weren't friends, but man, she could sing, even back then.
Went to high school with Rebecca Black. Heard she was a total bitch. But I would be too if you had hundreds of death threats over a song you didn't expect to get as big as it did.
Went to school with Joe Gaidas. He was a total douchebag, and it remains a happy memory that I beat his ass in 7th grade. Basically a self-important little shit that liked to claim Italians were great and he'd never give that up. Enjoy your deportation, asshole.
My dad went to school with Paul Walker. Apparently he was a pretty big nerd.
My high school Spanish teacher took an English class at UCLA with James Franco as the professor. She fast-timed him during class one day and it was the coolest thing ever. Apparently he's super smart and really down to earth.
Went to school with Justin Trudeau's wife Sophie Gregoire. She was a snob and her father only allowed her to date rich guys.
Thank you for watching. We publish amazing Reddit stories every day. If you are new to this channel, please subscribe to keep the dog smiling.